Good morning and welcome to Identity Leathercraft. Today we're going to look at the strip and strap cutter tool, a very handy tool, and we were asked the question whether it's worth investing in one of these and buying a whole shoulder of leather as opposed to buying the strips. So it certainly does give you economies from a shoulder. Sometimes they're called double shoulders. If I hold this up you can see the sort of size that you'd be getting when you order a whole shoulder. So this is what we would cut our strips and straps from. You can see there's nearly always a sort of almost straight line across the bottom. So that's where you want to start your straight line. The dimensions going up and along, this will give you the standard length for a belt. So they're generally around 50 inches. This gives you 50 to 56 at the widest section. You'll obviously be losing as you go up towards the top. You'll lose out where it narrows. So that section of leather you can obviously use for anything else like coasters or key rings, but you will have some wastage there. But again, you can make shorter straps for buckles and attaching things to bags. So from this section here is your usable belt strip section, and you should get between 15, maybe even 20 strips from a standard size shoulder, and that would be at 38mm width or 1.5 inches, which is the standard width for a belt strap. You can buy them online as individual straps, and that does give you some versatility. If you wanted to buy the dye through, for example, in the black, the brown or the tan, rather than having 3 whole hides in stock, you can just buy the pre-cut strips. So it's kind of a balance of where you're at with things as to whether you want to go down this route. But I'll show you how it works because it is a very useful tool in any case. It has this little lock on the top, which if you undo will allow you to move this bar up and down. And this bar, if I turn it this way up, it has measurements on it, which I think you can just about see going along here. So it has inches and centimetres. The blade is just at this end, which is a little tricky to see. It's kind of quite a hidden thing. It's just at the end there. But you can adjust that to whichever length you want. So I'm going to put this one here on 20mm, 2 centimetres, and give it a tighten. So you make sure there's no wobble on it there. You can use it either left or right-handed, which is quite handy. So I'm just going to cut on a piece of the bridle leather just to show how it works. So because this leather is quite thick and firm, I can push it up against the blade to get it started, and then once you've got it through on this side you can pull, keeping it butted up against this smooth straight edge, pulling along. Now when you get to this end, this is where you want to just go slow, nice and slow, and avoid the temptation of going out very quickly because you can get a little curve upwards. So that gives you a nice straight. Now you can suddenly see that if you've got a whole piece and you're wanting to cut lots of things quickly, that's going to give you a really quick way of cutting all your strips up. So this that I've used, just this one on, is the really lovely midnight blue, navy blue lightweight bridle. So this is a little bit thinner, but it still went through fine. You can replace the blades. There's a little screw at the end here which you just unscrew. It loosens the blade cavity. You can push them out and put a new blade in. I have to be honest, we don't really replace them all that often, so they should last quite a long time. I'm going to show you a way of doing it when you've got thinner leathers to work on, because you've seen them probably even before that. What I've just done there you may have seen already, but this is a method that I like to use for doing thin leathers when I've got to cut lots of long straps out on the things like the oil tan calf for the bag making workshop for doing my straps. So I'm just going to put it into my, if I just turn that round, I've just put it in at right angles resting on the table into my vise, which I got from a car boot sale for £1, bargain. Very handy thing, acts as like another pair of hands. So I've got a piece of the oil tan calf here. These are some of the firm calf. You can see how much thinner that is, and it's a little bit floppy. but it's still possible to use the strip and strap cutter on this thinner leather. So what you want is kind of a straight line again, but a little kind of diamond or tail. So I normally start with quite a sharp angle going up like that across the end of the strip, so that I can get it pushed into the start of the blade. Now with the thinner leathers, you'll find they don't want to pull through, they tend to just bend, but it will leave a little mark of where it hit the blade. So just to get it started, where that mark is, I'm just going to start a little cut incision, and I can then feed that through, and now it's in line. And again, you want to kind of leave it so that this is kind of butting and even, and then just gently pull it through, keeping it steady. And you can see that doing it that way, you can cut even the thinner leathers. And there we go. Okay. Now if you were to try and do that with it flat on the table, it tends to buckle up, it gets all in the way. So you being able to use both your hands to pull through is what the trick is there. So that's how you can use your strip and strap cutter on thinner leathers. But I'm also going to show you how you can use it to make lace. So this is some I've done part way through. So this is from using a circle with a strip and strap cutter, and it's kind of a sort of satisfactory thing to do, but it does mean you can use up, you can make sort of lace lengths from little circles of things in your scrapbooks. I would suggest you use maybe a dinner plate, because the larger the circle, the better the lace. You can see this has got a little bit of a curve in it, which when I pull it tight it just disappears, and you can slightly dampen the leather and pull it tight to remove that further. But as you get closer in and you're taking the leather out from the closest to the centre of the circle, it gets to the point where it's very curly, and I tend to just cut that bit off. You'll see in just a moment. This was a piece I did from a circle that was about that big, and I've got really quite a good length there out of that piece. I would say you'd need at least 2mm leather to do this with, and I'm going to set the cutter to around 4 to 5mm. You can go thinner, but I don't generally advise it. It tends to, as you're going round in the circle, you're more likely to slice through. So I'm just going to tighten that up to my thickness that I want. And then, having cut your circle, I'm going to use these leather scissors, which I'm quite enjoying at the moment. And I'm just going to cut into it and cut up like a little tail, if you like. Because again, we want to be able to have something to grab onto. So if you can see there, I've just made a little start in the curve of the circle for it to go in. So I'm going to push that in and get that lined up. Now to start it off, I tend to push it through until I've got a nice bit of the tail coming out that I can grab. So the circle itself, you'll notice as you're pulling, will drop down onto this straight bit, so it should, in a sort of self way, if I turn it that way it might be easier to see. Okay, so now I'm pulling on the tail and the circle is spinning. Again, the temptation is to go quite fast, but I would advise against it. Partly because when you get round to this point here, which is where you started, you'll have a little kink in it, and you'll need to just guide it effectively from going in a full circle into a spiral. Once you get past that, it becomes a bit easier. So you can see it's kind of fun. Now it's starting to lose its shape as it gets a bit further to the tighter centre. It starts to go a little bit more into an oval. But if I pull this all the way through now, just for the fun of it, I'm left with that tiny bit. But as I say, I'm left with quite a tight sort of circle. So I'm just going to snip that bit off because that will be too kinked. I probably can find some other use for it. And there we go. I have a length of lace made from a circle. How to make your own lace with your strip and strap cutter. So as I say, it's a very useful tool. If you want the code for it, it's code 3080, and it's available from our website www.identityleathercraft.com, as are the other leathers mentioned here. Thank you so much for watching and hope we can help. Thanks. Bye bye.